welcome. It feels kind of weird making a video like this, as I usually just talk about my health to people not really in private but more private circles. I have experienced some stuff that I think might help people if they hear about it. So you could get some conclusion out of this if you want to, or just, I don't know, hear a story if you don't. Anyway, some needed exposition. I am 19 years old. I am, as it now stands, chronically ill with no real diagnosis. A lot of test results that just indicate that something is fucked up. Like, for example, me being heavily underweight and not really gaining anything even though I eat a lot. And every time I get sick, I just stay sick for a while. And now I've been battling with constant throat to upper nose pain for over a year. Additionally, I am unable to digest gluten at all, and stuff like fructose, lactose, and some fat in larger than small quantities I can't. And all of this in addition to my respiratory infect or whatever this is. Could also be some immune overreaction. I have heard everything by now and nothing is conclusive. All of this also culminates in me mentally not doing very well. I have been to numerous doctors who have all said a lot of different stuff. Some saying I'm not sick at all, just psychological. Others saying that I have I forgot what that white wound stuff is called, but some of them saw that in my throat, so I really don't know. But one reason I tell you all of this as exposition dumping basically is that I get a lot of medication, and oftentimes there are not very good to pretty devastating side effects. And that's not a good thing when I don't even have a real diagnosis what specifically is wrong with me, because then I, for example, get medication against slime, even though my throat and lungs and everything is pretty dry. So yeah, that wasn't great. And the stuff in there is also known to cause sleep problems, and I already have insomnia, so I don't need that. There was also something written about it causing aggression issues, and I am already pretty agitated through all of this stuff, so I was worried that if I would take that, I would actually end up killing someone or hurting myself or whatever. And that stuff is with a lot of stuff I was told to take, because I decided against a portion of that was supposed to help me, but I would rationally deduce that it would just cause harm and not actually combat any of the issues I had. My family also criticized me heavily for that. So I just began taking what the doctors told me, no matter if it was rational. For example, one told me that I should take acid blockers because I had majority of my tummy aches aren't stomach aches. They are large intestine aches. Sometimes the large intestine and the small intestine, and only if I had food poisoning in the stomach. I also have the throat pain I mentioned earlier. I just had like weird heart bumps. I can talk about that later. So I was told to take acid blockers because the doctor that I told all of that meant that it had to have been my stomach acid causing like chemical burns inside my stomach and throat. And I reassured her that my stomach aches were primarily because of too weak stomach acid, if anything. Of course, it also had other causes, but if my stomach acid was too weak, I would suffer indigestion and sometimes throw up. And it was very, very clearly that in those cases my stomach acid was too weak, as my stomach juice was like very, very little acidic. Like not even as acidic as your average apple is. And it also tasted really bitter, primarily bitter. And I also told the doctor that I could theoretically do a handstand and wouldn't throw up because my throat lid would actually work. And yeah, she just ignored that and told me to take that stuff. And because my family was pressuring me, I did accept that, even though I knew that it was a stupid idea. There was also some back and forth with her not listening when I asked her what I should do if I see bad results from it. And after like a 3-minute discussion, she relented and said that if it was actually causing me issues, which she knew it wouldn't, quote unquote, then I was allowed to stop taking it. What it did for me is that made me really nauseous as my food didn't get digested. I got like really bad stomach and the rest of the digestive tract pain. I actually nearly threw up and I was barely able to eat anything in that phase. Over the span of like a few days, was at most 5 days, I had lost 5 kilograms, which was really bad, especially with my underweight. I think I'm sitting at 49 right now. So, of course, I then stopped taking it, and there was obviously just shit. So, a bit later, because planning for doctor's visits always takes time, and not just that, but they also take ages to actually let you visit. I was doing a breathing test to see if I had asthma. And but before that, you should probably know that I don't use up a lot of oxygen. I am, as far as I am aware, unable to be choked out. I can sprint for over a minute without breathing in or out, and I can hold my breath for this is just guesswork right now, but around 10 minutes if I don't move, which I think is more than normal, because usually when it's something about holding my breath in a competition against other people, they are surprised about that. Anyways, all that to say that either my oxygen consumption is very low or my lungs just work very great, something like that. I don't know. Oh yeah, I nearly forgot why I was talking about that. So this makes me normally breathe very slowly and shallow, and this in combination with my underweight kind of leaves my rib cage muscles not very developed. So I undertook a breathing test because they thought I might have asthma. In this test, I found out that I don't breathe as well as a normal person would. According to the graph, I was breathing with the power of 62% of what is the normal value or the expected value or something like that. I don't know. I only remember 62%. And I do remember the breathing tests, and I really had to breathe out to an amount where the pressure difference between the inside and the outside of my lung was like really immense, and it was hard. And they took that as a sign that I allegedly had asthma, which I don't know, I can't really vouch for the validity of that. All I can say is that I did not feel encumbered by my normal breathing, which was, just so you know, through the nose, which is tighter than the throat. And I have heard from one person with asthma that they breathe through the mouth. I don't actually know if that's correlated. I should have probably looked that up before deciding to make this video. So in this medication I was told to take, there was one thing that was supposed to widen my throat and another that was supposed to suppress my immune system, which I thought would be a pretty bad idea because, like I stated before, my immune system is pretty shit. Lowering the function of your immune system obviously causes a higher chance of mycelial infection. Now, they told me to wash my mouth after using it, and I used it 2 times a day as advised. I washed my mouth enough to get wound lips from the residual water because I really didn't want to get issues with that. Oh yeah, they also put, for whatever reason, a carcinogenic and highly toxic solvent in there that is known as ethanol. Very great to have that inside you. And because, like I said before, my family was pressuring me, I just took the stuff anyways, even though I felt like it was going to be a stupid idea, and it did not help. And instead, it, after I think only a week, it gave me like a bunch of red dots on my tongue, which are still not diagnosed what it is, and it's still not away. And then I took it a full 4 weeks. This was like 1.5 months ago, I think. Then I had red dots on my tongue from the front back to the back of my mouth, where I started having swollen bumps, which are also still undiagnosed what it is. I went to the doctor with that and said when it appeared, what medication I was taking at that time, and I was told that it could be a mushroom or mycelia. I genuinely don't know what word is correct to use here. So without testing if it actually is, I got another medication. This one having a bunch of bad side effects, like liver damage, which you really can't know if it's there until it is so bad that it's irreversible. Some issues with the skin where it like dies off, and there's like infected hollow thingies that bump out. Not hollow, filled with like pus and blood and whatever. And I also didn't want to have that, as I already don't really feel too comfortable with my skin, and looking like a victim of the pestilence wasn't really going to make this better. But it also had a side effect that was not listed on the packaging, but was a common known side effect of the main chemical, and that was the increased risks of heart attacks. And there was a lot more stuff that I really did not want, but as I said, I was already in a pretty bad state of mind. I was feeling like nothing might heal me anymore, and my family was once again just pressuring me to take whatever the doctors gave me. So I took that stuff, and I was supposed to take 4 or 5 a day. I forgot what it was, but I took the first one, and it wasn't much later that my heart started beating not rhythmically and way too hard, and I was like, okay, maybe this is just a fluke. Okay, I'm stronger than that. I'm just gonna continue this medication and see how this develops. 3.5 hours later, I then took the second one, and my stomach started aching like real bad. So did the rest of my intestines later, but more pressingly, that actually made me have the same heart pounding arithmetically and stronger than before, but now it was for longer, but I can't really say if the intensity was stronger. It was just noticeably longer. So because I did not want to die of a heart attack, I decided against continuing the medication, and because it was already pretty late, I was gonna shower and go to bed. So I went under the shower. My whole family was already sleeping at that point. I, of course, instinctively locked the door, because whenever I go to the bathroom, I just lock the door, which wasn't a very wise decision in hindsight. Or rather, in hindsight, it maybe, I don't know. Oh, great. And from all the fucking coughing I did from having to speak, my throat is already bleeding again. This is peak. Then under the shower, again, my heart started pounding, and worse and longer than before. And I was genuinely worried in that moment that I might die, because it felt horrible, and it did feel pretty life-threatening. And you know, they tell you in movies when people die with regrets that they think about their family or whatever. And the weird thing is, somehow my first thought was that, or I don't know if it's weird, you can be the judge of that. As much as I felt fear for my life, I also felt a lot of frustration, because I never did anything to deserve being this sick constantly. And I am only 19 years old. I still have a substantial part of my life ahead, like 4/5 or whatever. And I didn't even earn money yet, and couldn't really spend money on anything I would have liked to. And that were also the thoughts that were going through my head at that time, which, I don't know, I find it is pretty pathetic. But also, after thinking more about it, it's also kind of good that I didn't regret not spending enough time with family or friends, because looking onto that, I always was able to spend enough time with family and friends that made me happy, and I hope them too. So maybe it wasn't pathetic, but just a sign that I at least had a good social life. To take the thoughts off of those serious stuff, I also want to tell you what my next thought was, which was pretty funny in hindsight, and that's that I didn't want to be found dead and naked under the shower, which you shouldn't really care about when you're at a risk of dying, which I also pretty quickly realized then. My heart issues still haven't really stopped, but they have gotten better since then, and it was about a week ago, so I'm rather confident that I am not going to die of a heart attack, but it's still kind of uncertain how the rest is going to go. But I still have hope that it's going to get all better. And I don't know, if you want to take like a life lesson out of this, I could say the generic stuff like do stuff that makes you happy. But to be honest, I think it's better to say, if you would die, what regrets would you actually have? And not having made any money isn't really one of them for me, even though that was the first that came to mind in that situation. More like that I'm kind of a bitch that doesn't take opportunities when I should. And if you are too worried about a small risk that an opportunity, would it be speaking to a person or learning something new? The small risk that would cost, like wasting time or embarrassment or whatever, is that really greater than the risk of not doing it? I think I'll leave you with that. And I hope I can live up to what I say at least, and hopefully get healthy enough soon to make normal videos. But I just wanted to get this out while my memory was still fresh enough to articulate this all and not forget important details, even though I already forgot some. And on that note, if I see another medication that obviously wouldn't help and causes side effects that might kill me, I'm just straight up not going to take that. So much about the potential losses of taking risks and not taking risks. Anyways, I hope to see you in HPM's Nuclear Tech Mod Let's Play or something, and bye.